Okay, and today we're going to talk about different types of triads and also chords. Same thing. Basically, we're going to talk about major triads, minor triads, and how we make those chords based on the scale. So here we have a C major scale. Okay, so we're going to make our first chord based off the 1, the 3, and the 5 of that scale. So we're going to take C, E, and G, and that is going to equal C major. So we're just taking the C scale, and we're taking the first, third, and fifth note of that scale, the 1, the 3, and the 5. That's how we get a major triad from C, E, G. So to make a minor triad, what we're going to do is we're going to take C, E, G, and we're actually going to make the middle note E flat. So we're going to lower the third by a half step. Okay, so it's going to be C, E flat, G, and that's going to equal a C minor chord, or a C minor triad. It's called a triad because there's 3 notes. Now, the major triads and the minor triads are the most common, but we also have variations of these where we alter the fifth. If we take a C major triad and make the fifth sharp, so now we have G sharp, that's what we call C augmented, or just aug, which stands for augmented. So it means it's gotten bigger. The chord is bigger from C to G sharp. It's a bigger interval. It's a sharp 5. So the chord is augmented. It's a little bit bigger. And then also, we can take C, E flat, and G flat. And this is what we call a C diminished. So dim stands for diminished, which means it's smaller. So this triad has a flat 5. So it's like a minor triad, but the G is flat. So we have C, E flat, G flat. So we have a flat 5 from C to G. So that flat 5 creates the diminished sound. So these are the basic kind of triads that we learn in the beginning. However, there are other ones. Okay? You can also think of, instead of playing a 3 here, what we can do is we can actually take this E and go back to the 2. Or we can take this E and go up to the 4. We call that a suspended chord. If I were to make a triad that was C, D, G, that would be called a suspended 2. So you would write C sus 2, because we have C and then the 2 is suspended. So instead of the third is suspended on a 2 in this case. So the chord is going to be C, D, G. So we have the 1, the 2, and the 5. So again, we call that sus 2. So if we have a chord that's 1, 4, 5, so C, F, and G, we call that a C suspended 4th, or C sus 4, because it's the 1, the 4, and the 5. The 3 is suspended over into the 4 right now. So basically, C sus 4 would be C, F, and G. Okay? Now these are all the basic, most common triads that you're going to see in music. However, there are other forms of these that are a little less common. You might not hear about them in music school, but there are a lot of composers that use triads like Lydian triads and Phrygian triads. So if you just kind of bear with me for a second on the idea, C sus 2, if we were to make this a D flat, it would be a half step. So if we go from C to D flat, that's actually a flat 2. Okay, so basically that would be different than a sus 2. So if you wanted to give that a name, you could call that a Phrygian triad, which we'll explain later when we learn about the modes. But you could also say, if I took the C sus 2 and made it D flat here, so C, D flat, G, you could call this a C Phrygian triad. Okay? Also, if we took the sus 4 and made it C, F sharp, G, if we go from C to F sharp to G, that creates a Lydian sound. So that comes from a mode called the Lydian scale, but we'll learn about that later. But just so you know, it's a possibility. Okay? Not very common, but again, it is used. C Lydian. You'll hear these less common triads in music like film scoring and stuff like that. Rick Beato has a great channel that talks in depth about how these kinds of triads are used in composition, in film scoring, and all other kinds of music. Now, another important thing to understand about triads is that we can take these 3 letters and move them around. So we can take the C and put it at the end, so it starts with an E, or we can take both the C and E, move them so it starts with a G at the beginning, okay? That's what we call inversions. So if we take a C major chord like this, C, E, G, that is in scale-wise order, so we're going to call that root position. So root position means that C is the root of the chord. That's the one, that's what the chord is named after, and it's also the note that the chord starts on. So a C major triad in root position is going to be C, E, G. Now, if we take the C and put it at the end, the chord would be, you see that? So if I took the C off of here and I put it at the end, you're going to have E, G, C. E, G, C. So this is a first inversion C major chord. Then if we take the E and put it at the end, it's going to be G, C, and then E. And this is what we call a second inversion. Okay, and this can be done with any chord quality. If you have a minor chord, diminished chord, augmented chord, or anything, you can move the notes around in different orders like this and you get inversions of any kind of triad or chord. So for example, if I wanted to do all of these with a C minor chord, all I would have to do is simply flat the E in each chord, and then you would have C minor chords in root position, first inversion, and second inversion. Okay, and that pretty much sums up the basics about triads and chords. We can take any three notes, put them in different order like this. In our next video, we're going to talk about 7 chords that contain 4 notes. And so they also have same inversions, but they also have a third inversion because there's 4 notes that can be rearranged. And then later we'll also learn about chords that contain even more notes than that. But for now, we just want to keep it really simple and understand triads and first and second inversions really well with chords, and then we can move on to more complex chords later.